So going into this game, it was going to be interesting to see how Ten Hag deployed the midfield with both Bruno Fernandes and Donny van de Beek in the side, and what we saw from the start of the game was that Eriksen would play in a slightly deeper position alongside Casemiro, with United looking like they were going to use their usual 2-4-3-1 possession shape. However, as I spoke about briefly in my analysis of the Wolves game, which will be linked below, Ten Hag's system has become very fluid, and so what we saw is United move to what I anticipate Ten Hag wants to become his primary possession shape, which I would define as a 3-1-6. And this came from Luke Shaw pushing forward on the left side and Christian Eriksen dropping deep on the left side, creating a back three with Harry Maguire and Lindelof. And the reason behind why I think Ten Hag wants Eriksen to drop into these deeper, wider positions is twofold. But before I go any further, let me tell you why you should consider downloading the OneFootball app, because it's become my all-in-one place for keeping up to date with the latest football news, whilst also being able to follow Manchester United specifically, giving me access to all the latest news, videos and articles. It's also the best place to keep up to date with any live football, as during the World Cup they had a live ticker for any updates on the match, confirmation for the lineups as well as a rating for each player, and also all the team stats you need as well to get a better in-depth view of how the game played out rather than just the goals scored. So if you want to support the channel and think you'd also be interested in looking at the OneFootball app, I'll leave it linked in the description and comments below. Firstly, the back three in possession gives United a wider base, which means against a 4-4-2 shape like the one that Bournemouth were using, United are now more effectively able to circulate the ball around Bournemouth's front two. And with one of Luke Shaw or Marcus Rashford inverting infield, sitting behind the Bournemouth midfield line on that left side, it makes it incredibly hard for one of the Bournemouth midfielders to push out and close down Christian Eriksen, as it would leave a space vacated in behind them for the likes of Luke Shaw or Marcus Rashford to drop into, allowing United to potentially work the ball in behind Bournemouth's midfield. And so throughout the first half and pretty much the whole game, we saw Bournemouth take the conservative option of not only dropping off and allowing United to move out of their defensive third pretty easily, but also trying to remain narrow and compact in their 4-4-2 shape and close down the space between the lines. Now in the first half, a lot of the game was played in the middle third with United controlling possession, and what we saw at the start was Donny van de Beek sitting ahead of Christian Eriksen and Casemiro, with Bruno Fernandes playing on the right side but playing quite narrow. Often we've seen Ten Hag use Antony and Rashford as natural wingers holding their advanced width, particularly in the middle third to stretch the opposition's back line, and then maybe in the final third they can move inside. However, against Wolves we did see both Rashford and Antony start to move infield a lot earlier on in the possession phase, and in this game we saw Bruno Fernandes taking up a very narrow position from the off, sitting in the right sided half space in behind the Bournemouth midfield line. And with United utilising this 3-1-6 shape, or what you could call a 3-1-5-1 depending on whether Martial holds an advanced position or starts to drop off, we would often see as many as 3 United players sitting in between the Bournemouth midfield and defensive lines. In this scenario it is Luke Shaw who's created the temporary back three in possession, with Christian Eriksen instead pushing up between the lines, with Bruno Fernandes and Donny van de Beek also taking up these central positions as well. However, despite having around 60% of possession in the first half, United weren't really able to create much of substance from open play, and I think this did come from the lack of advanced width in the system. As with both Donny van de Beek and Bruno Fernandes in the side, and Bruno Fernandes coming in field early, United didn't have that attacker sitting on the outside of the Bournemouth left back, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka was taking up much deeper positions and even moving in field himself at times. And so with United's possession shape very lopsided towards the left side, this allowed Bournemouth to stay quite compact and narrow in that 4-4-2 shape and stop United being able to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch and into the final third. This would change in the second half with Garnacho now on for Donny van de Beek, and I'll come on to how that played into the game later on. But I think this was definitely a game where if United had gone in at half time at 0-0, I don't think it would have been much of a surprise, as they only had an XG of 0.71 to Bournemouth 0.12, and 0.47 of that XG actually came from the goal, which came from a set piece rather than from open play. Casemiro would be the player to open the scoring around the 20 to 25th minute, and I don't think you can argue that United were kind of fortunate to go in at half time with the lead. But in the second half, with Garnacho coming on, United now had 2 natural wide attackers, and the team just looked a lot more balanced, and we would see this with United's second goal. But before I analyse that, I think we should look at United's out of possession shape and how they pressed Bournemouth quite effectively in the first half. As we saw against Burnley and Wolves, United press in that narrow 4-2-3-1, where the wide attackers, which in the first half was Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, sit very high and narrow, pressing almost as a front three alongside Anthony Martial, with Donny van de Beek and Christian Eriksen both man-to-man pressing Bournemouth's double pivot of Jefferson Lerma and Lewis Cook, and Casemiro sitting in behind them, which gives United a kind of 4-1-4-1 pressing shape, which at its most aggressive in the opposition's defensive third becomes a 4-1-2-3 shape. And as we can see here, when one of the centre-backs would receive the ball, rather than Anthony Martial pressing them solely, it's instead the wide attackers, in this game Fernandes and Rashford, who push up aggressively to apply the pressure, which stops Bournemouth being able to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch and forces them out wide to the fullbacks, where from Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka are instructed to leave their man and continue in the aggressive press. And just like it was against Wolves and Burnley, this was very effective at forcing Bournemouth long from their own defensive third when the fullbacks received the ball in these positions, and often we would see Bournemouth go long, looking for Solanke or Billing as the outball, but a majority of the time this would just give the ball back to Harry Maguire or Lindelof, allowing United to regain possession and restart their attack. But now we come on to the second goal of the game, which came at the start of the second half, and we can see how the advanced width on the right side played a role in this goal. So first of all, Luke Shaw and Marcus Rashford play a 1-2 on this left side, and Luke Shaw, who I thought was fantastic playing as a left back in this game, who had previously been good against Nottingham Forest and Wolves playing as a left-sided centre-back, had a major part in this goal. As Rashford lays the ball back to him completing the 1-2, Luke Shaw has the power and the pace to just drive the ball forward into the Bournemouth half, using his power to race past both Adam Smith and Jefferson Lerma. And as he carries the ball into the final third, we can see that it's not just Bruno Fernandes over on this right side, but also Alejandro Garnacho. Now in the first half, it was Bruno Fernandes playing from this right side, and rather than holding his width on the outside of the fullback as Garnacho is doing here, Fernandes was moving in field. And the effect of this is not only are United more congested centrally, but when they do look to switch the play quickly, because they have one less player holding their width on the far side, the attack would usually stagnate as they wouldn't have that final passing option moving the ball out to the flank. But in this position, as the ball goes out to Bruno Fernandes, not only does Alejandro Garnacho's width mean that Kelly, the left back, can't move out to close down Bruno Fernandes straight away, but it also gives Fernandes his final passing option to move the ball out to the right side. And credit to Garnacho, as in the Wolves game I did say that he was very indecisive in these 1v1 positions. However, in this situation he recognises that the best opportunity is if he plays this pass back across goal first time, and so rather than looking to take on Liam Kelly in the 1v1 inside of the box, which you would assume would be a very dangerous position, he opts to play the pass back across goal, finding Luke Shaw, who's carried his run into the box, and Luke Shaw, like a clinical centre forward with his weaker right foot, is able to guide the ball beyond Travers in goal, giving United a 2-0 lead. And so with Garnacho coming on at the end of the first half for the injured Donny van der Beek, we were able to see an almost immediate effect of United now having advanced width on the far side, but most of the credit obviously has to go to Luke Shaw, who starts this move on the left side, being able to use his pace and power to play the 1-2 with Rashford, and being able to break through Bournemouth's high pressure. And it's this sort of ball carrying and technical ability which is turning Luke Shaw into one of the best left backs in world football, and shows the sort of quality that United also need from the right back position as well. Now whilst United controlled possession in the first half, the pattern of the game in the second half was much different. It was a lot more end to end and a lot more chaotic, and Bournemouth seemed to be able to play their way into the game a lot more. And whilst United would win the game 3-0, a comfortable scoreline, we did see Bournemouth able to cause United a few problems, particularly on the right side. See, as United continued to look to counter press high up the pitch with the midfield line pushing very high, Bournemouth had both Jadon Anthony on the left and Ryan Christie on the right side able to move infield and find space in the half space in between United's fullbacks and their central midfield. And there were a few times when there was a turnover in the Bournemouth half when they were able to feed the ball into Christie or Anthony in one of these positions and have them drive the attack forward. But particularly on the right side with Christie receiving the ball in this half space, Bournemouth were able to cause United a few problems, and this was because Adam Smith was overlapping quite aggressively on the right side, because as we know, Ten Hag instructs his wide attackers to push high up the pitch to apply the pressure, and so neither Garnacho or Rashford, whoever happened to be on the left side, were able to track back with the overlapping runs of Adam Smith from right back, and because of this you can see that Luke Shaw can't move out to close down Ryan Christie, allowing him to drive forward with the ball into United's defensive third, and Adam Smith overlaps down the right side. And there was a couple of times when the ball was shifted out to Adam Smith in these sorts of crossing positions where he was able to put in dangerous crosses into the box. And it was around midway through the second half when Bournemouth had quite a number of times when they were able to feed the ball into Ryan Christie in behind Christian Eriksen, with there being a massive gap between the Manchester United defensive and midfield lines, and Bournemouth were able to attack down that right side. And probably the best chance from one of these situations was Philip Billings' header, which was well saved from David De Gea. And whilst Bournemouth weren't able to make this pay dividends, which I do think came from individual quality in those attacking positions, I do think this is definitely a defensive tactical concern, this space that was developing between the likes of Christian Eriksen, the left-sided attacking midfielder and the defensive line. And against Manchester City, this would definitely be something that Pep will be willing and able to exploit, with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva able to drop into these spaces and be a lot more effective when they receive the ball and start running at United's back line. Now, I do think looking back on the game, Ten Hag will feel that United should have controlled this game a lot better towards the end of the second half, as it did become very end-to-end, with both United and Bournemouth having a few chances. But ironically, I do think United would have benefited from having a player like Christian Eriksen to bring off the bench, as coming into the game at this point, I think he would have brought a certain degree of control to the game, allowing United to retain possession, slow down the tempo of the game, and stop it being so back and forth. But when bringing on a player like Fred, you aren't bringing him on for his possessional control, you're bringing him on for his energy, and this sort of just fed into that back and forth game. And ultimately, I think it comes down to the lack of squad depth at Ten Hag's disposal. I do think United need another deeper line playmaker rather than solely relying on Christian Eriksen, just to switch things up in the game. And against better opposition with better attacking quality in the final third, I do think we could have seen United going into the last 10 minutes at 2-1 and really under the pressure. But United would wrap up the game with a third goal, and once again it was Luke Shaw who played a key role. He picks up the ball here inside the Bournemouth half and plays an absolutely fantastic driven pass over the Bournemouth backline, finding Bruno Fernandes's run, who gets away on his first time pass back across goal perfect, putting it on a plate for Marcus Rashford to put into the net, sealing United's victory. So overall, I do think it was another impressive display from United, despite the loss of control in the second half, and the tactical issue with Christie being able to receive the ball in behind Christian Eriksen, and Adam Smith causing problems down the overlap. And I do think that is definitely something that Ten Hag needs to amend, particularly before the Manchester City game, as against better opposition, United could have conceded 1 if not 2 goals in this game. However, there were a lot of positives. I do like the fluidity in the system, with different players popping up in different positions. I didn't cover this as much from a tactical perspective as I did in the Wolves and Nottingham Forest games, so definitely check out those videos, I'll leave them linked in the description. But there were a lot of very good individual performances from United. I thought both Luke Shaw and Casemiro were the standout players, and I am going to be looking to do individual videos analysing both of them and why they are so important to this United side. So if you want to see those videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you get notified when they come out. Check the description for more videos, as I said before. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and put your thoughts on the game in the comments section below.